Characterizing young learners. In this section, we will outline the characteristics of children development in general, and, on a more specific note, those of children as foreign language learners. In order to do that, we will resort to a metaphor to reach a better understanding of language learning. In this case, we have chosen to compare language learning with the learning of music, since these two processes share a number of similarities. When children start learning a foreign language, the same as when they embark in the learning of music, all of the learning process occurs through the sense of hearing. Listening comes first, and then comes experiencing with the body. Both types of learning involve the development of specific abilities, such as discrimination and imitation of sounds, words, and tones. In the case of music, once children have sufficiently engaged in activities involving listening to musical segments, identifying and imitating them, they can begin to use the arbitrary system of symbols musicians employ to write music, musical notation. In a way, language learning could be considered a fairly similar process to the one we just described. Only after children learn to discriminate and imitate sounds in a foreign language can they learn to recognize the formal system to register written communication. Later in the learning process, learners of both music and a foreign language become capable of interacting with written symbols with relative ease. In the case of music, this learning stage opens the doors to performing more and more complex musical compositions. In the case of language learning, this stage brings about the ability to use written symbols to comprehend ideas through reading and to express them through writing. In this later stage, symbolization, processing symbols, and systematization, realizing that language is a system, are two further processes music and language have in common. Now let's move on to mentioning some characteristics of young learners. The first group we will analyze is very young learners, which refers to learners between 4 and 5 years old. At this stage, young learners can be characterized as follows. They change their mood easily. They can be enthusiastic 1 minute and bored the next. They enjoy repetition and feel confident and at ease with routines. They learn by imitation. They are very energetic and enjoy physical activities. They are in a period of rapid language growth, which means that they love learning new words, talking, and singing. The general aims of formal education at this stage are socialization and habit formation. At this stage of learning, it is important to consider the following 3 areas. Firstly, the socio-affective area, related to attitudes. In this sense, educators must pay attention to 2 different levels. To be oneself, which is related to self-confidence, feelings, and willingness, and to be with others, related to cooperation and interaction. Secondly, it is key to consider the cognitive area, related to knowledge. Within this area, we consider different cognitive procedures. Information, how to process facts or details about something or someone. Comprehension, the ability to understand, for example, instructions or messages. And application, the use of an idea for a purpose. Finally, the last important point is the psychomotor area, related to habits and skills. Habits help the development of actions which are demonstrated by motor abilities, like walking in line to the classroom, putting up a hand to ask for something, asking for things in the foreign language, etc. Let's now consider the characteristics of learners between the ages of 6 and 7. At this stage, young learners can be characterized as follows. They can talk about what they're doing. They use their imagination. They use a variety of intonation patterns, that is, the rise and fall of their voice when speaking. They understand situations more quickly than language used. They memorize, but not easily recall. They play and work in the company of others. They know the world is governed by rules. They have a short attention and concentration span, which means that they can pay attention and focus on something for a short period. They experience the physical world as dominant. They view the world in a different way. They are keen on learning. They can choose between options provided by the teacher as to what to learn. They can sometimes find it hard to separate fact from fiction. Let's now focus our attention on some of the characteristics of children from 8 to 11 years old. At this stage, young learners can be characterized as follows. They can rely on the foreign language as well as on the physical world. They work with others and learn from others. They understand abstract concepts and symbols. They can make generalizations about language. For example, an S in final position in a noun means plural. They can also make systematizations about language, which means understanding and using language forms because they are part of the system of language. They understand relationships of cause and effect, which leads to them being able to use words such as because and so. For example, I'm eating an apple because I'm hungry. They see patterns in language. For example, an English-speaking child knows that in English he uses adjectives before nouns, as in red car. If he learns Italian, he has to identify and use a different pattern, noun plus adjective, as in macchina rosa. They know the difference between fact and fiction.